Hello and welcome to My Way or the AI Way. I'm Scott Davison. I'm on a mission to master AI, and as part of that journey, I've been consuming a lot of AI content from different sources. But one source I've been getting a lot of value from is Isar Meitis. He's the host of a podcast called Leveraging AI, and he's also the founder of Mutiplai.ai, a company that's helping businesses and business leaders implement AI into their businesses. So that's what I wanted to have a chat about today. So if you're a business owner or an executive wondering how to navigate this space, hopefully this discussion is going to be really helpful for you. Isa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Like I say, I've been listening to your podcast for quite a while now, so I feel like I know you already. It's a real honor to have you on the show. But for the listeners, maybe just start with a bit of your background, because you've got quite an interesting background. If you could just explain a little bit about that and why you've moved into AI recently.
Sure. So yeah, about 1,000 years ago, I was an F-16 pilot. I always laugh. It was me and the Wright brothers back then were flying. It was many, many years back. I was an F-16 pilot for just over a decade. I spent my last 2 years in the Air Force as an instructor in the Air Force Academy, which I absolutely loved. That's kind of where I found my passion to training and education and helping people be better at what they're trying to do. And I always said since then that if I'll find a way to make serious money being an educator, that's what I'll do. So now I guess I found my calling that will go first full circle. But then I left the Air Force, joined the startup world. I grew up in Israel, and like the tech scene is obviously very active. So I was in a small tech startup in Israel out of the Air Force with another bunch of Air Force guys. We were building advanced training and simulation solutions on PCs, which nobody did back then. We were like one of the first companies in the world to do it. That's what brought me to the US. So I moved here as a way to grow the business. Four of us came here to the US, started an extension of the company over here. And after that, ran my own software company and another software company. So like running software businesses was most of what I did. I had two exits with these software companies, one bigger than the other. And so that's my background. And about 2 years ago, plus 2.5 years ago, I sold my half of a business to my business partner. That was October of 2022. And I was thinking what I want to do when I grow up. And then ChatGPT came out and I'm a geek and I love technology and I had spare time because I just sold half of the business and left. And so I started playing, and as I mentioned, I'm a geek, but I'm also an investor and I'm a CEO and in different boards. And I talk to a lot of relevant people, and very organically, people started asking me for advice. And initially I gave it for free. And then I started charging for it. And very quickly after that, one of the businesses I invested in is an online cohort training platform. And I was mentoring the CEO for about 2 years. And I told him, I said, listen, we got to have an AI course. And like, that's an awesome idea. Can you find me an instructor? I'm like, I'll be your instructor. I said, you're on my board. You're like an investor. Like, you want to be a teacher now? I'm like, yeah, I love it. It's like, okay, you're it. Like, I trust you. And so that was the first course. That was April of 2023. We taught the first AI business transformation course. And I've taught it at least once a month since. In many months, I'm teaching it twice. And I'm doing workshops and speaking on stages and consulting to businesses and so on. So that's a very
Fantastic.
summary.
I mean, 2022 in some ways is not long ago, but in AI terms, that's a lifetime ago.
Yeah, like
So you've been there for a while. And what sort of businesses and business people are going through your course? Where are you providing this training?
interesting. So I do two types of training. Most of the training that I do is actually company workshops. Like people invite me and then we custom tailor the training for their company. But the courses are either, that's not totally true. Like the courses are also, some of them are custom for a specific organization. So most of the courses that I teach are actually private, and they're for different organizations, membership organizations, consortia, buying group, or specific companies. And the public courses only end up doing about once a quarter. So I'm actually teaching one in next week. May 12th is going to be this coming cohort, and probably the next one will be in August. But the people who join the courses, the public courses, are a pretty big variety. People fill up a questionnaire when they join the course. So about 80% of them are managers, and more than 50% of those are in senior leadership. So either C-suite or the rest are middle managers, and about 20% are not managers at all. And from a size of company, and that's one of the things they fill out as well, most of them are small to mid-sized businesses. And the people that work with me the most, I would say, are between, so not in the courses. In the courses, there are a big variety, but people who hire me for consulting are probably between 10 million and 300 million. That's kind of like the sweet spot of most of the companies that I work with. And between, 60 employees to 300 employees, that's kind of what it ends up being. But I do have outliers on both ends. In the course, it's an interesting mix of people in those companies and solopreneurs. So it's kind of like both extremes of like larger organizations, as well as people who are either solopreneurs or running, a company of 2 or 3 people.
Okay. Okay. So I'm interested in that full range. So maybe let's start with the solopreneurs and the small businesses. What are the sort of typical challenges they're facing, and how are you helping them navigate those? And how's that different from, say, the bigger businesses?
Yeah. It's a great question. So if you think about a solopreneur, you're everything. You're accounting, HR, finance, management, legal, strategy, logistics, marketing, sales. You're doing all of that. So every place that you can have somebody assisting you in the process is huge, right? So if you can eliminate or reduce the amount of tasks you have to do as a solopreneur, it's a gold mine, because it frees time for you to actually do the business that you're in to do. Like, I hate accounting. I can't stand doing finances. If you can have AI do 50% of the work, you save 50% of the work of A, stuff you hate doing, B, just tedious work that doesn't really support your business. It's pure overhead. And so for solopreneurs, that's huge, right? And in addition, I think specifically in my courses, the fact that I have background in running bigger companies, I bring a lot of value to them just from the viewpoint of how I look at the business and what's important and not important, and strategy and so on. So that also helps the solopreneurs as well. So I would say for them, it's just like literally everything. Just show me how marketing and finance and sales and automations better works for them. I think on the bigger company side, we end up the course with an hour and a half of strategy, like how to implement AI in your business from a business-wide perspective. So that you can't have that conversation without doing the rest of the course to teach you what's possible. But the outcome is you get a blueprint of what you need to do as a business to start implementing AI more successfully, which for them is the most important part.
Okay. And what are the risks for businesses that perhaps aren't undergoing training or thinking through it strategically? What are some of the risks if they just go straight into AI?
Well, it depends on how far into the future you're looking, right? So if you're saying, I'm going to look 5 years into the future, your risk is I'm not going to have a business. And that counts for the big businesses as well. Because one of the things that we talk about a lot from a strategic perspective is you got to look at what of the value that you provide, products or services, is going to be either eroded or eliminated by the fact that your clients will have access to AI in abundance. And for some businesses, that means you won't have a business. And there's a pretty big variety of those that it's already true right now, and it's just going to get more and more true for more and more businesses. And it's not a 1-0 game, right? It's not going to happen tomorrow. You're like, oh my God, where did everybody go? But in the next 2 to 5 years, you're just going to lose all your clients. And some of these are huge industries. Think about like the call center or contact center industry. There is not going to be such a thing as a contact center 5 years from now. They just won't exist. There are currently millions of people in the world that's their profession for decades. And so, but that's an extreme example. There are many examples where it's not going to be a complete elimination, but it's going to erode the value, which means you need to prepare for that. And so when you start looking at that strategic perspective, there's a lot of questions that you need to start asking right now so you can shift the focus on the business, shift the structure of the business so you can actually survive it. So ask what the risk, that's the most extreme risk. The shorter term risk is that your competitors will learn how to do stuff with AI and their cost structure will be a lot more competitive than yours, and you'll just find it hard to compete. It obviously works the other way around. If you're faster than them, then you'll have a better cost structure and you can run circles around them. So that's just a competitive advantage kind of question.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you really are looking at the big picture from the strategic point of view. I've heard you talk about this a bit on your podcast, and you have a very balanced view from what I can tell. You're equally excited and a little bit scared of AI. Like, where do you sort of sit on this technology overall in terms of the big picture?
Yeah, I think what you said is about right. Amazed by what it can do. I'm amazed with what the future brings from value creation and capabilities it brings people. I currently do with a very small team stuff that I couldn't do with X people 2 years ago. 2 years. And it's mind blowing that it's possible. And I'm talking about stuff that just it's not that it was hard, it was just not doable. And now I'm doing it, and I'm doing it actually in two businesses. I'm running two companies right now. And I couldn't do that 2 years ago. So that's the exciting stuff. And it's exciting to any company because you can do a lot more with a lot less. There's the old joke of like faster, better, cheaper, pick two. You don't have to pick anymore. You can actually do things faster, better, and cheaper. And it's magic if you know how to do this. The flip side is there's a lot of negative aspects that are going to happen to businesses, economies, society as a whole that nobody has answers for. Nobody. Not the people who are leading the charge in the leading labs, not the people in governments, nobody. And some of them are job losses. Or how many people are going to lose their jobs and what's going to be the impact of that in the economy? People say, oh yeah, we'll be able to make stuff a lot cheaper. I'm like, okay, but let's play a game. Let's say people in leading white collar jobs, C-suite VPs, directors in companies, the people who make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, let's say 30% of them are unemployed. The economy stops. The global economy stops because these are the people that have lots of spending power, and they are the ones that make everything work. If they're out of a job at a large enough scale, the fact that you can make it cheaper doesn't matter because they don't have the money to spend. And so that's just one question. The other question is what happened from a social perspective when you have 30, 40% unemployment? Nobody knows, especially not at the higher levels of white collar jobs. What does it mean to the livelihood of people from a psychology perspective? What does it mean from a social perspective where you have no clue, zero ability to know what's true and what's not true in digital communication? And digital communication is 80% of our communication today. Even you and I, we're now talking, we're seeing each other, and I assume you are you and you assume me are me, but that's an assumption that even today is not true. 2 years from now, 100% not true. It could be your mom, your spouse, your kid talking to you, and it's not going to be them. That's possible right now. And so how does a society, now if you think about the concept of society as a whole is built on trust. Trust is built as knowing what's true and what's not true. That's how trust. If I don't know what's true and what's not true, and I don't trust anything, what happens to society as society? So there's all these questions that nobody's answering. And yet the train is moving faster and faster towards the gorge, hoping somebody will build a bridge. And I'm not sure the bridge is being built or whether it's being built fast enough. And so I'm on one hand, no, I'm a father. I have 3 kids. My daughter's going to college next year. I don't have a clue what to tell her to go study because I don't have a freaking clue what's going to be the needs in the market in 4 years. And so it's a very mixed feeling roller coaster kind of world I live in.
It is. I've been going through the same process of sort of swinging from being incredibly excited to incredibly scared. Definitely, I can relate to that solopreneur scenario where it's really leveled the playing field. It's given, a one-person team the ability to have effectively a virtual team of assistants. So it's really amazing what it does for those small businesses. I think of a big business where you've got hundreds of employees, potentially, maybe thousands of employees, all at different levels of digital skills, different personalities. I mean, how important is leadership in terms of bringing staff along for this somewhat scary ride where people are worried they're going to lose their jobs? Some people aren't sure how to adopt the technology. How much do you focus on sort of mindset and leadership?
So I'll answer this in two different ways. The first thing is the two most important deciding factors that I see in companies for successful AI transformation. One is leadership buy-in, and two is training and education, proper training and education. If you're lacking one of those, it's not going to work. So I think leadership buy-in is critical. And I think having your leadership team educated enough, they don't have to be experts in AI, but they need to be educated enough to be able to have the conversations that they need to be having in order to make the right decisions for the business. And that is going to get trickier and trickier. So even if you are the way I am, I'm a huge believer in people. I think that having happy employees is maybe the number one goal of a business. That being said, if I'm going to run out of business by keeping all my employees, I'm now hurting all the other employees. So I can either lose 100% of the business and all the families that I support, or lose some of them to AI and be competitive and support the others. I think many businesses will run into that question. But to understand, what does that mean? What does it mean in marketing, in sales, in HR, in the trajectory of the business, revenue versus expenses, overhead? You have to have the right people in the room, and they need to understand the tsunami that's coming and understand it in enough level of granularity to actually have a educated conversation and make the right decisions. And I think most boardrooms right now, both boards of directors as well as C-suite and VPs, do not have that level of understanding as we speak.
Okay. And are there any examples you're seeing of businesses that perhaps are doing it well, either big or small?
Yes, I even between my clients, I see a big variety of how much buy-in there is from leadership. In some cases, it's, oh, okay, we're going to hire you and you're going to work with all of our teams and we're going to figure it out. Awesome. In some cases, the CEO is in every meeting and he is sharing with me stuff that he's doing that I don't know how to do. And he's sharing it in every all hands. And so it's a very different kind of universe, right? Between we hired a consultant and he's going to help us do it versus I'm all in and I'm also bringing a consultant on board and we're going to work on this together. And so there's a big variance. I think the people who are saying they don't have time for this because they're really busy running a business do not understand that the existence of their business might depend on them understanding this sooner rather than later. And most CEOs and most VPs and most C-suite people do not understand what I just said. They don't know that that's true. They think that it will take time. It's not really a big deal. It will pass. People don't understand how profound the implications of AI will be on many aspects of many businesses in many industries.
Yeah. Now, it is scary or interesting times and everyone's sort of navigating it. It was one example I saw, I'm pretty sure you would have come across it as well. There was a memo, supposedly a leaked memo from the Shopify CEO a couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm interested in your thoughts on that, just what was in that memo. And because I saw some people saying, oh, this is great leadership, and some people saying, well, where's all the support? So what were your takeaways from that message in terms of that leadership approach?
Yeah. So first of all, what did Latke put in the memo? He basically said it's a very short memo and you can find it online. It's like one page, less than one page. But he basically said, if you want to hire any person in any department in the company, you first have to prove to me that the thing that you need the person for cannot be done by AI. Basically a hiring freeze that says, if you want to hire a person, you got to prove first. To get an approved budget, you got to prove first that the thing that you're trying to do with that person is not doable with AI. Do I agree or disagree with that opinion? I think it goes back to what I said before. I think if you are now in a competitive environment, and Shopify definitely are in a very competitive environment. Yes, they're the 800-pound gorilla, but there are other options. I think if you are in a very competitive environment, and you do not understand that this will make or break your entire business, you're putting the rest of the business at risk. And so do I think it's the humane decision to make? Probably not. Because it sounds like, oh, the company is not going to grow. No, it's not what it means, because anybody that gets let go will not get rehired unless you can prove that you got to have another person to do it. And over time, they will. Satya Nadella, couple of days ago in an interview, shared that 30% of the code that Microsoft generates, which is one of the largest code generation mechanisms on the planet, right? It's freaking Microsoft. 30% of the code that they're generating is now generated by AI. Just let this sink. Microsoft, one of the largest code generators on the planet, 30% of what they're generating is generated by AI. That's insane. That means that if you want to compete with Microsoft, you have to do the same, because otherwise they'll be able to be much cheaper than you are in generating new code. And I think looking at this across the business tells you very quickly that if you want to stay competitive, or in the short term, you want to gain competitiveness, you just have to do it. Otherwise, you're either going to lose market share or eventually lose the entire business. So to me, one of the scariest things with this whole AI thing is that we live in a highly capitalistic world that is driven by revenue and bottom line success as the most important aspect. And as long as the world is run that way, there's no other option. Like, you will have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And that concept of looking for not replacing staff with staff, but replacing them with AI or potentially agents that we're hearing a lot about. Is this sort of where you see teams going in the future, that they'll be made up of part humans, part agents? Is that going to be the all chart of the future?
In the beginning, yes. I think in the long run, if you think about, and I'm going to go foo-foo on you for a second and on your list,
Yeah.
I apologize. But if you think about what makes a successful company, it's a combination of two things: great talent, so bringing the right people, the right minds, the right skills, the right capabilities, and their ability to effectively work together. Call it whatever you want to call it. Call it best practices, call it culture, call it systems and processes. It doesn't matter, right? It's that thing that makes a company versus a group of individuals. And some companies got it, and some companies don't, right? That's why there are companies that are successful than others. But let's take the ones that are really successful. Let's take Shopify. Shopify figured it out. They know how to run a successful business and grow it to a very large size. They know how to get the right talent. They know how to apply the talent in a way that is meaningful, that grows market share, that rules the world. Why won't they start another company with the same blueprint and go after medical devices? Why not? Because it's impossible. You cannot replicate the people in the same positions. You cannot replicate the culture. You cannot. But with AI, you can. If you figure out how to build an agent that does X very effectively, you can have as many of those as you want if you have enough compute. So if the ROI makes sense, and it's going to be a lot cheaper than people, so the ROI will make sense in a lot more cases. If the ROI makes sense, once you have one, you can have two, you can have 100, you can have 1,000, you can have 1,000,000. That doesn't work with people. If you have one really talented person, let's take the examples of AI talent. That's why the big labs are now paying, I'll pay you $1 billion for your company. I don't care about the IP. I want you to work for me. That happened several times in the past 2 years, where the large companies paid stupid amounts of money. Noam Shazir is a great example. There's a bunch of others. Stupid amounts of money to aquabuy. That's like the term. Like, I don't care about your company. I don't care about your customers. I don't care about I want you. And I'm going to pay you $1 billion just to come back and work for me, because that talent is very rare. But what if I can develop a Noam Shazir or a Satya Nadella or AI? What if I can? It doesn't have to be it. It can be close enough. And I can have 20 of those, 50 of those, 100 of them. And I can have that in every major position in the business. You cannot do that with people. First of all, because you can't find that talent. Second of all, that talent will not be able to grow and scale. And third, you won't be able to replicate it to other businesses. But with AI, you can. I mean, maybe not now, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years. It doesn't matter when we get there. The curve is very, very clear. We're getting there. The only question is when. When this happens, in theory, you can have a company of AI, 100% AI, taking over the world. Every business, every aspect, everything that is knowledge-based. Now, is that going to happen? I don't know. Is that a very extreme scenario? Absolutely. Do I think we're going to get in that direction? Yeah, absolutely, because it makes sense. If I can be the owner of that company, I will pour as much money as needed into that. And there's enough people in the world to pour money into a company like this. So, and then you run off. The chances of other people catching in time before their businesses collapse, not very high. So do I think that's a very extreme future? Yes. Is it a possible future? Absolutely. And I think in the very near future, people working with agents in collaboration in different groups, different teams. And that's happening like already now in multiple businesses.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating discussion. You're sort of a couple of years down the path. You're seeing things, and you're a long way ahead of certainly me and a lot of business owners. If I think of a lot of particularly small business owners, haven't really even started yet on their AI journeys. Um, let's bring it back to now for that typical sort of business owner or business manager. What are some practical steps they can be taking now to start the process of evolving their business and their staff? Where would you recommend they start?
First of all, I recommend they start. Most people are in that fear mode, or I'm too busy mode, or I don't have the budget mode, or I don't have the time mode, like whatever the reason slash excuse is, like, okay, we can't do this. And I think that's slowly going away. Like I see more and more businesses are like, okay, this is real. It's not like the metaverse. It's actually happening, and I need to start doing something. The biggest problem is, like you're saying, people don't know exactly what to do, and they get Copilot licenses for other employees, and they think that's going to solve the problem. The number one thing is education and training, right? It's getting, first of all, the leadership team and then the other people in the company to understand what this is. And half of it is so you can start having those conversations from a strategic perspective. And half of it is because you can start benefiting from tactical things on the day-to-day today. Like, you don't have to wait 3 months. Like, there's benefits that you can gain now if you know how to use the right tools and apply them in the right way. And you can start saving an hour here, 2 hours there, $500, $5,000, $50,000, depending on what you're trying to do and how big your company is, very, very quickly, if you know what you're doing. So the number one thing is education. Second thing is 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 a company-wide process, right? So the fact you're going to educate people still doesn't transform anything in the business on its own. So the second thing is putting together a committee of the right people from the right groups that will work together to start figuring out what does that mean to transform the business with AI, and work either with or without external consultants to drive that process and that change in the organization. And at the end of the day, it's a change management exercise, just like anything else. So the people is the biggest thing you got to take care of, and the rest is a little easier.
No, that's really good advice. So that's great. We've covered obviously the big picture, the futuristic stuff, but also some really practical tips for business users who are looking to get started. So thank you so much, Isa, for coming on the show. It's a real privilege to have you on. For people who want to find out more about Multiply or perhaps join one of your courses, how do they go about that?
So first of all, to connect with me, the easiest thing is on LinkedIn. So my name is Isar Meitis. It's spelled Isarmeitis. And the bad news is I have to spell my name every time because nobody heard the name before. The good news is if you found Isar Meitis on LinkedIn, it's me.
It's you, yeah.
There's only one of me on LinkedIn. So that's awesome. So that's the easiest way to connect with me if you want to connect with me. If you want to check out what we're doing at Multiply as far as consulting and education and courses and so on, just go to Mutiplai.ai. And Multiply is actually spelled kind of weird, but it's a trick. It's spelled Multiplai instead of Y in the end. I thought that was very smart when I got the domain name. I still think it's very smart, but now I have to spell it every time that I explain.
Well, for those watching, it's printed on your T-shirt. So
It is
you've got it
printed
right.
on all my shirts now to help me kind of like deliver the message. But for those of you just listening, is just remove the Y in the end of Multiply and spell it with AI instead. .ai, and over there you can see everything that we're doing. You can book time with me. You can click on courses and see the courses that we deliver. The courses are fantastic. They're filling up obviously every time we open them to the public. As I mentioned, we do private courses and workshops if you're interested in that. But just again, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to do it.
Fantastic. All right. I'll put all those links in the show notes so people can follow up there. And definitely the Leveraging AI podcast is one I've been listening to. And you do your weekly news updates, but you also do deep dives on a lot of really interesting stuff, particularly
I
for
should have mentioned that.
marketers.
Thank you
No,
for
no,
that.
I'll
Yeah.
give a plug
Yeah,
for you because,
the
as I say,
podcast is definitely the lowest hanging fruit, right? If you want to learn, I'll say two more words because you brought it up, and I appreciate you did. What I do and how I started the podcast. I mean, I've been podcasting for 5 years, but Leveraging AI is just over 2 years old. It started in April of 2023. What I do is I look for the best practitioners in AI in the world in different aspects, in different sizes of businesses, and I bring them on to share not what they're doing, but how they're doing it. So there's a million AI podcasts out there right now. Very few actually dive deep into the tactical stuff. Use this tool, use this prompt, copy it here, get it there. You get this business outcome. And this is what we do once a week with really, really amazing people that implement AI. So thank you for bringing that. Like, if you just want free learning on how to do stuff with AI, leveraging AI is an incredible source of information. And again, we've been doing it for 2 years. So there's like 180 episodes that more than half of them is that. The other part is, as you mentioned, are just weekly news every Saturday of like what happened this past week. So you can choose to listen to one or the other or both, depending on what you're interested in.
Yeah, no, I listen to both. The weekly news is, I mean, it's so hard to keep up with what's happening in the industry. So a weekly check-in every week, there's like multiple things that have changed. It's incredible the pace things are moving, and it's great to have people like you at the forefront bringing the rest of us along for the journey. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge, and good luck with this wild future that we're all embarking on.
Amen. Thank you so much. This was great questions, great conversation. I appreciate it.
Okay, that was Isar Meitis from Mutiplai.ai. I'll include Isar's contact details and links to his website and LinkedIn profile in the show notes if you want to get in touch with him. That was a very interesting conversation. I haven't really gone down that path on the show so far in terms of some of the future big picture opportunities and risks. So that's probably opened up some thoughts for a lot of you. I know it can be a bit scary, this future, but to Isar's point, putting your head in the sand and pretending it's not happening is clearly not the right strategy. So now's the time to start experimenting if you haven't already. And if you have any questions or need a hand with anything, feel free to get in touch. I'd love to help you along that journey. Thank you for listening. I hope you got a lot of value out of that episode with Isar, and good luck on your journey. Thank you for joining me on my journey to learn more about AI. I'm Scott Davison, and this is My Way or the AI Way.